This is Al, and I'm still pinching myself in Edinburgh. I'm in Scotland, all right? And anybody who likes Scotland, put your hands together. Oh! We have such a crowd here. We also have our friends who are far away. I think Dave takes the cake because he is the furthest away, being in Arizona. Hi, Dave. Good evening to you.
How's it going?
It's good. We have people here, ModPo people from way back, and they see Dave, an original TA, and they think, he never gets old. And there's Pep, who really wants to be part of the game here. We have Max coming to us from a nearer time zone than usual. Hello, Max, who's in Berlin. How are you?
Hi, Al. How are you?
It's good to see you. I think everybody should put snap for Max, because he's snap-worthy. J.S. Wu is here from Philadelphia, I presume. Hi, J.S.
Yeah, hello from Philly, holding down the fort.
Holding down the fort. Nobody's there but you. And Kate Colby is here from Providence, Rhode Island, also kind of far away. Hi, Kate.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And we have here at the table Magnus the Magnificent, Christy Williamson, who's come over from Glasgow to join us, and a dear friend. Yay, Christy. And we let the record show that we were in Glasgow for a number of days, and we had two really great film sessions with Christy at the home of Tell It Slant Books, which is in, what's the name of the little store?
It's in Locavore.
Locavore.
In Govan Hill. There's many Locavores, and this Locavore is in Govan Hill on Victoria Road.
And if you go in, you'll see Tell It Slant Books, and you should buy some books. In fact, if you go at the right time, Christy will be there. Anyway, it's great to see you, Christy. And Christy has been in ModPo for years and is now a poet in ModPo Plus, and is just really finishing everything. And we're trying to persuade him to spend a bunch of time with us next fall in Philadelphia. So I'm just putting that out there for the kids, so that your kids, so they know. We're going to steal him for a couple of weeks. Sophia Durose, hello. That was enthusiastic.
I'm sorry. I lost my voice, so I'm sorry.
Sophia lost her voice in Scotland. And Leanne Brown, who gets some kind of award, because Leanne Brown not only had a big B-day yesterday. Are we still feeling good about saying it?
And today's my mother's birthday. So.
And today is Mother's birthday. Yeah. And Leanne is an esteemed poet who's mostly in the New York area or North Carolina, and has decided to be in Scotland and seems to love it here and has been part of the party the whole time. We have Laynie Brown, who really needs to get a lot of recognition. She really curated this entire gig that we're doing within an inch of its life, and we are so grateful to you, Laynie. And let's talk close to the mic, and let's do a commercial for tomorrow morning, would you?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm grateful to all the Scottish poets who helped me organize, and a shout out to Ian Morrison, who's here, who is the person who helped organize a lot, including a bunch of events at Fruit Market beginning tomorrow at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. local time, Fruit Market tomorrow. And it's going to feature, before a live audience, I hope many of you, it's going to feature a poem talk.
On Veronica Forrest Thompson, and we're going to do a collaborative close reading on a short poem.
Ian Hamilton Finley short poem.
And we're going to talk about Peter Manson's work. And what else?
There's one other. And we hope that people will come, and maybe somebody watching this webcast from down the street will come and join us for a couple of hours, and then after that we're going to gather for lunch. And Irene, I'm pronouncing your name like an American, sorry. Irene Tora Moadano.
You get better every time.
I get better? Yes. Irene came from Spain to hang out with us.
Hello.
And we'll meet some of the other characters as we go along, because
I just have to say that we're talking about Ian's work tomorrow. I cannot forget that.
Oh my God,
it's
Ian.
very important.
Laynie really blew that, I think.
I'm trying to make up for it.
We've been in touch, but we just met recently, a few days ago, you and I, you're such a love. I mean, it's just such a great. We're so happy. The scene here, the scene here is really, really great. Okay, you got some great poetry, and we are at the Scottish Poetry Library, and we're so grateful to our hosts and Allie, who's downstairs. Allie has been among those instrumental in getting us started. Okay, so I need someone. I'm guessing Max is good at this. Max, will you be watching the YouTube comment stream? Okay, can I get a second person to do that? JS, are you good? Okay, and then Dave, will you keep an eye on the discussion forum thread? I saw maybe one thing there before. And Chris Martin, will you tell me the phone number again? 610. 610-616-3208. We want you to call that, and if you're calling from outside of Scotland, wait a minute, not really, right? If you're calling outside the 610 area code in Pennsylvania, you can use Skype audio or Skype video if you want at ModPo Pen, all right? And we really hope someone will call. As a matter of fact, the first person who calls will get, once we return to Philadelphia, a copy of a book by Laynie Brown. We will send you a copy of Laynie's book. So that's encouragement to call. What we're going to do now, 610-616-3208. Please call. Please call. This is a radio program. Please call 610-616-3208 or Skype at ModPo Pen. And now we're going to go around and collect favorite beat poems of the week. And we're going to start with Laynie and go to Christy next.
Wow. Okay, I'm just hearing some people.
There's some loud Scottish
Maybe
poets.
they're reciting poets out there. I'm gonna.
Isn't it a little early to be this loud in Edinburgh? Maybe not.
I wouldn't know. The locals
I wouldn't
say no.
know.
Yeah.
Favorite beat.
I'm
poem,
gonna say
quickly.
"I Know a Man" by Robert.
I Know a Man. And why?
Because
It's not really a beat poem, but
I
it's,
know,
it's
but it's
part of the week.
It's in the week. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about how it's a poem that attempts to keep going, even foolishly, perhaps.
Nice.
It attempts to keep going through the darkness.
Wow. You're taking it unironically. I appreciate that. I love that. Okay. Christy, favorite poem, and Kate is on deck.
So I'm going to go with Bob Kaufman's jail poems.
Yes. Why?
Especially number 7, because I feel like he's really walking the walk in this week.
He really is.
He's really reporting from the front line.
Yeah, absolutely. Front line, pun on verse, right? Did you encounter Bob Kaufman for the first time in ModPo?
I did, yes.
Yeah, ModPo. Now we're talking. Now we are talking. Eva is back there. Hi, Eva. Can you give Eva the microphone, Beverly? Sorry, Eva, I've called on you. Is the mic on? Talk really close to it.
Yes, I think it is.
It is.
Is it?
So you found us in 2020 during the
did.
pandemic. How, why, what was it like?
So it was something very new for me. I'm an actuary, so very analytical, do a lot of maths. Was never into poetry, but came across ModPo on Coursera. Thought I'd give it a go and loved it. It unlocked poetry for me for the first time.
Wow, we're feeling really good having made the trip just to meet you. That's so great. Thank you, Eva. Okay, so Kate followed by Dave.
I've been appreciating Incident by Amiri Baraka this week, and how both beautiful and disturbing it is, but also how it lists all of these things that we know, but in the end becomes a question of what it means to know and what truth is.
Lovely. Okay, Dave is up and Ian is on deck. Ian will need a microphone. Dave?
I wanted to mention something from ModPo Plus. It's the Jake Marmer prefatory statement before his section of experimental transcriptions, Cosmic Diaspora.
Yeah.
It's a great little vignette of an experience he had in the village listening to jazz when he heard some drunken scream outside, and the band playing jazz inside picked up the same melody as the scream, and it just became this amazingly collective experience, where everything was happening at once. I think that is just a great embodiment of what we're studying.
Yes, I'm so glad that I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I somewhat arbitrarily put Jake Marmer, a contemporary poet, he's somewhat influenced by the beats in the sense of sound, in this week, and it really works well on the spontaneous and the jazz stuff. Okay, so that was Dave. Thank you. Ian is up, and Irene is on deck.
So a beat poem I love. I don't know if she's on the Modpool chorus, but Elise Cowan.
She is.
Great, because I love the lady is a humble thing made of death and water. The fashion is to dress it plain and use the mind for border.
Wow. Quoting from memory Elise Cowan, who most people don't know. I mean, the sort of sexist famous claim to fame in the old days was she was a good friend of Allen Ginsberg, and she typed one of his manuscripts for him, something like that. So that's like a bad way in which Elise... Yeah, but Modpo celebrates her with several poems, and it's very interesting in its own right, obviously. Thank you, Ian. Well played. You even guessed the poem you didn't even know. Who did I say? Oh, Irene is on deck, and Irene is up now, and JS is on deck.
Okay, so also it's not a poem, but it's the Kerouac prose list, essentials of prose list that, I don't know, I really like how the paradox and the irony are in all those lines, and, well, I just like them.
Essentials of Spontaneous Prose, it's called. Great choice. JS is up, Leanne is on deck.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Amiri Baraka's How You Sound. This is, I don't know, I was just very struck by the text. But then this morning, during my office hours, I had a fantastic discussion about Jane Cortez's She Got, He Got, and just the performance and how moved we were by it. We all listened to it in unison during office hours, and yeah.
You did a Jane Cortez office hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That is really great. Good choice. Okay, Leanne is up and Max is on deck.
All right, I definitely picked Cheerless Junkie song by Helen Adam. And I think of her as a real singularity. She definitely was sort of claimed by the beats. Like Allen Ginsberg adored her because he loved meter. But I also think of her to do with San Francisco Renaissance and New York School, and she's moved all around. But of course, she's Scottish.
And she's
like,
Scottish.
Almost everybody I've talked to here has never heard of her. Seriously. And the one book that's supposed to be in this library that I saw 5 years ago is missing. So
Are you criticizing the Scottish Poetry Library?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm a little worried, but
right
so I
here?
personally pledged to provide some Helen Adam for this library. I'm going to send it because it's not here.
Scottish audience members, how many of you, got to be honest, okay? How many of you have never heard of Helen Adam? Okay, not bad. Half, okay. Christy, we have some work to do.
Yeah, we do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, Max,
exciting.
Max, your check. And while Max is doing this, I'm going to ask JS to look at the comment stream. I'm going to invite people watching by YouTube to vote for suggest which of the poems that have been suggested we should talk about next. So Jane Cortez, How You Sound, Incident, I Know a Man, Jail Poems, Cosmic Diaspora, Elise Cowan, Jack Kerouac on prose, Helen Adam are the options so far. Max.
I'm not going to add anything new to that. I have to second Christy and go with the jail poems for this week. If only because I had a great office hours yesterday where we talked about incident and also a little bit about jail poems, and I was reminded of how fun. I don't know if fun is the right word, but they are fun. How fun the jail poems can be.
Do you have jail poems open on your laptop by any chance?
I do.
Would you read any of the ones that you talked about in your office hour, please?
Sure. I'll read number 3, the first one that's here. In a universe of cells, who is not in jail? Jailers in a world of hospitals, who is not as sick? Doctors. A golden sardine is swimming in my head. Oh, we know some things, man, about some things like jazz and jails and God. Saturday is a good day to go to jail.
Wow. Chris, do you like that?
I loved it. Thank you,
Which
Max.
is
It was beautiful.
That was
reading.
really good. I liked the way he
Beautiful.
said, "Man." You're not quite. You've lost your beatnik accent on the A there, man. Man, you've got to
That'll
that out.
happen.
Magdalena is here, who came all the way from Warsaw. It's great to see you, Magdalena. Yes. Okay. So, Beverly still has the mic. Who has the mic? Ian has the mic. Let's go. Let's bring it back to Beverly. So, Beverly, you will get to vote along with the others as to which we should talk about. You probably remember some of those options. So, who is JS and Max? Tell us what's going on in the YouTube chat.
It is very split. Just about every poem that we've talked about has been named once. I'm seeing Creeley, or I'm seeing Kaufman come up twice. But it's a wide spread of poems. We have How You Sound, He Got, She Got, Incident, Adams, Kaufman and Creeley, Rogue State also just came up.
Yeah,
Rogue
me
State.
too, I think.
Yeah, Max, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh no, I was just saying. I think JS has more or less covered it. There's votes for Creeley, for Kaufman, and a vote for Incident,
and a vote
for Rogue State. Yeah, it's all over the board. I think you're just gonna have to
Beverly,
make an executive decision.
you're gonna get to break the tie.
I go for Incident.
Incident, Baraka. Okay, so let's all pay attention to Baraka's Incident, and I am going to read it, and I'm going to ask Ian, Max, Leanne, and Christy to say anything about it in turn. Are you guys okay with that? And we should have somebody from the audience do it too.
Yeah.
I think Graham should be made to do it. Can we get the mic? Graham's right here. This guy, Graham, was my student at the University of Pennsylvania in 1987. That would be about 36 years ago, 37. And we look exactly the same.
We haven't changed.
And this is Graham's daughter, Lola, and I'm just so honored to see you. And also, this is a new book by my former student called Deep Fakes, and it really looks exciting. So, Graham, you're going to be on the spot. Okay?
No pressure.
Okay. I'm gonna read the poem, or as Laynie would say, I'm gonna read the poem. He came back and shot. He shot him. When he came back, he shot, and he fell, stumbling, past the shadow wood, down, shot, dying, dead, to full halt. At the bottom, bleeding, shot dead. He died then. There, after the fall, the speeding bullet tore his face, and blood sprayed fine over the killer and the gray light. Pictures of the dead man are everywhere, and his spirit sucks up the light. But he died in darkness darker than his soul, and everything tumbled blindly with him, dying down the stairs. We have no word on the killer, except he came back from somewhere to do what he did, and shot only once into his victim's stare, and left him quickly when the blood ran out. We know the killer was skillful, quick, and silent, and that the victim probably knew him. Other than that, aside from the caked sourness of the dead man's expression and the cool surprise in the fixture of his hands and fingers, we know nothing. All right. Max, you're up first, followed by Ian. Any thought at all on this?
Yeah, well, I had a great discussion on this in my office hours yesterday with Celia, Barbara, Vidaya, Larry. We talked a bit about how it seems a little out of step at times with some of the more canonical beat poems, for example. And we talked a bit about how it seems very whereas howl is really this, as the name suggests, this sort of burst, this expression of emotion, sometimes of frustration, of anger. The emotion is very contained here in Incident. That Baraka seems like he's trying to actually kind of hold things together in a way, to sort of like rather than simply have this sort of Ginsbergian outburst. There's a bit more craft. There's a bit more care. There's a bit more tension, internal tension in the poem, and that seems a little bit to be what makes it seem kind of atypical for this week.
Thank you, Max. A great start. Let's turn to Ian with Christy on deck. Ian, what do you think?
So, weirdly, one of the things that this poem reminded me of was The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. There's this kind of mystery in the poem that I feel like is hinted at, with the he came back. I like the way that the poem seems to be all this action and moment, but it also kind of in this sort of way sort of has a sort of peripheral vision in it that we don't really get to see. But so many, all poems are kind of capturing action after it happens in a way. And I feel like this poem is sort of doing that with something that could be really disturbing, but also it can't help but exist within narrative framing.
Wonderful. Wow, this is really happening. Christy, followed by Graham.
Yeah, I love there's just a couple of lines that have this really intense lyricism. I love the blood sprayed fine, and it's fine. It's fine because it's like it's a fine mist.
Yeah.
But if you say something is fine, then you're usually praising it. And is he praising the blood? He's not praising the blood shed. That's for sure.
Right. Right.
And then that juxtaposition with the grey light, it's just painfully beautiful, and then the conclusion of the poem is again really hits hard. I think the cool surprise and the fixture of his hands and fingers. We know nothing. And it's about what can we know, what do we know.
Fantastic. Okay, Graham, can you follow that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I really like about this. One thing I really like about it is how, particularly in the first half of the poem, so much of the language in the description of the violence actually sounds violent. He shot, he fell, down, shot, dying, dead, full halt. Right? It's really, he's hitting you in the face with every word. It actually reminds me of Lowell's Memories of West Street and Lepke. There's a line in it, they beat him black and blue. Right? And it's that same staccato attack. But then, like Christy, what I really love is just the ending, that last line. We know nothing. Right, so we've had all this really this rich description, caked sourness, cool surprise, skillful, quick, and silent, and then at the end, we know nothing. It's like he's set up this statement, and then at the very end, he turns the whole thing into a question mark.
Brilliant, we're doing it. Leanne, what are you thinking?
Well, actually, I have never seen this Baraka poem before. It's amazing. Thank you for introducing me to it. It to me. It seemed like a long-lined ballad. It's a documentary story, but it's very different than a ballad because it has this headlong rush, but it's also, like you said, crafted. But the part that really sticks out to me is that part about the pictures. What is this? Oh, it's going away. Flash, flash, flash. It's like pictures of the dead man are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like I see this headlines and this documentary, and like how the ballad is like a documentary of what happens and a warning and a leaping and lingering from a picture to a picture, and there's something lost in between.
Love that. Chris Tids, do you like this poem? Can we get Chris the mic?
I do, and I've just had a couple more things if I could.
Please.
One thought is, who are we really concentrating on this poem? Are we concentrating on the person who has been murdered, or are we concentrating predominantly on the killer? And I'd say it's the killer. He. And the other thing I would say is, and I think you've touched on this, I think there's a hint of cubism here, that's like the cubist rather, because we've got flashes, and it's da-da-da-da-da. He came back, da-da-da-da. He came back, and sort of confusion that you could actually have yourself if you were asked to relate what on earth had happened in this shocking incident that just, and remember he came back. So I think there's two elements there that I'd just like to draw attention to. You know?
So glad you did. I have a quick comment on that, and then I want to turn to Sophia to choose the next poem for us to talk about from among the list. Did you keep track, roughly speaking? Okay, good. My comments, Chris Tids, I think you're right about the cubism. I think the beginning of this poem is Steinian. And I think you're wrong, and I don't really ever say that in ModPo. I can't believe it. I actually said that I think Chris Tids is wrong. The guy is a volunteer community TA. He works his butt off in ModPo. He comes all the way here, and I'm telling him he's wrong.
You could rephrase that.
Okay. Chris, I have another point of view to add to yours, which is very cubistic, so fine. So fine. I think we have to be interested in both he shot him, the him who got shot, the he who did the shooting, the subject, the object. It all tumbles down the stairs and gets mixed up so that we do not know who pulled the trigger and who got shot. We have no idea, and that is the way violence often is. We like, if we're the police or the journalist, those are the two forms of official rhetoric that we get referred to in the poem. If we're like the police or the journalists, we tend to want to figure that out. But how many of you have heard the police sergeant come to the microphone after a heinous murder and say, we have no information, we know nothing, we're still working on it? And I think Baraka is saying that is the way violence really is, in a Steinian sense of real. We don't know. It's all jumbled. How did I do? Are you feeling abashed? You agree with me, I think.
I would agree with you wholly.
Yeah.
I think that we can still focus on the he without...
He needs a mic, though. Yeah.
I think we can still focus on the he without actually knowing who on earth he is.
Right, exactly.
So I think there's a questioning there. Why? Who? What? You know.
Right.
So I think we're actually on the same sort of wavelength.
We are always on the same wavelength, Chris Tids. Can you put the mic back to Sharon, who's mouthing words from way back there? This is Sharon Wells, who might as well have taken a boat to get here, but didn't, because that would have involved the ocean, I think.
It would have meant coming around the coast in a boat that's...
In a tiny little boat that's got a flat bottom with a dog.
It's the bit that he died in darkness darker than his soul. It's just, isn't that saying something about the person who was killed? That he had a dark soul. And I just love that bit.
So you
all those D's with the... Yeah.
You're disagreeing with me.
Well,
no, you're not.
No, not
you're
disagreeing.
Fine.
Just thinking it adds something to the way you think about that.
It's the way ModPo works at its best. People add on to things. Sophia, what do you think? You need the mic to do this next part.
What do I think about the next thing
What poem should we talk about?
Well, because I didn't get to pick a poem, I'm going to go
You're chastising me because I actually left your name
No,
off
I
the
know.
list.
I noticed you write it down a few minutes ago.
And because she's speaking like in a baritone, I'm really feeling very chastised.
But I would like to talk about I Know a Man, and that's what Laynie suggested.
All right. I Know a Man. All right. You know what, guys? Oh, I don't have volume on, do I? You don't want, you want to turn my volume on?
No, you just don't have. You want me to play it?
Oh, you can play it. There are many, many versions of Creeley saying this poem, but no, just pick any. Pick the one at Harvard if it's there, because they laugh at Harvard uncomfortably.
Who?
Drive. Look out where you're going. No, the Harvard guys in the audience. No beats to be found anywhere near.
Right.
I know, just pick one. It doesn't matter. Certainly are, Ollie.
Most people can do it from memory.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it in a minute.
But that's
No, we are.
Yeah. I know a man. As I said to my friend, because I am always talking, John, I said, which was not his name. The darkness surrounds us. What can we do against it, or else shall we? And why not buy a goddamn big car. Drive, he said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going.
That's the laughter at Harvard. How many of you in this room met Robert Creeley in person? Yeah. He was a Writers' House Fellow, magnificent. All right, everybody who has the poem nearby, who has memorized it, we're going to do Creeley doing this poem. We're going to do the Creeley, okay? So you have to say, buy a goddamn big car. He has that kind of Western New York. Is he from Western New York? No, Massachusetts. He's from Massachusetts. All right, here we go. Ready? As I said to my friend, because I am always talking, John, I said, which was not his name. The darkness surrounds us. What can we do against it? Or else shall we, and why not buy a goddamn big car? Drive, he said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going. And Sophia, in order to preserve her voice, did not recite with us. So, Sophia will be first, followed by J.S. and Beverly. Okay, we got it. Sophia, J.S., Beverly, any thoughts? Sophia.
I like this this like bifurcation of kind of masculine trope. I feel like this stereotype of men not asking for directions and just kind of going for it, not knowing where they're going. But then John, who's not John, the friend, is like, pay attention, you have to do it right. And I like this like
two kinds of masculinity.
Yeah,
in
I
the
like
car
the
at
tension
once.
of it. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. That's great. Okay, J.S., what are your thoughts on Creeley?
Yeah, I guess one of the surprising things about hearing the recording is how present the line breaks are, or, you know, the darkness surrounds us. You really hear the line breaks. And I guess I'm just kind of reflecting on the way you don't hear the abbreviations of the words, for instance, said. And yeah, just with that, I don't know. Again, with this poem and it's sort of ambling, talking to oneself, and also a sort of dialogue where the other person is and isn't present. I'm just struck by what we actually hear when we hear this poem and the way that it's transcribed versus performed.
Wonderful. Beverly, I want to ask also Irene and Kate to add thoughts on this after Beverly. Oh, we need the mic. Who's got the mic? Sharon's got the mic.
Yeah, I really enjoy the dislocations in this, and particularly the way it was read and performed by him, and the spaces between that, and the way that that leaves sort of differences in meanings and interpretation.
Wonderful. Beverly, while you have the mic, when did you join ModPo for the first time?
I think it was 2014, maybe 2013.
The third year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were really into it. And I think, as I recall, when my wife Jane and I went to Prague, you came to Prague.
I was in Prague, yes.
That was amazing. And then we came here for a visit, and you guided us.
And I was in London as well.
And you came to the London group, as did Magdalena and Sharon. Amazing. You people. Anyway, thank you. I'm so glad you're still with us. This is great. I didn't mean that in the existential sense. And Beverly does great work at the Scottish National Library, which is actually not very far from here. So terrific. Keep going. Okay. Irene and then Kate. Irene, what do you think? You need the mic.
Maybe. Yeah, I was thinking about the sound of this poem, because we have like all these beat poems, like more canonical poems that sort of bring us, and the movement is there, is also in the sound, is these long sentences. And then we had incident, which is like the movement, as you were saying, is like these flashes, is more like cut in flashes, in pictures. And here there's something about already the lines and the way Creeley reads it, that even if it's cutting every time, but still we get in the flow, and I don't know, I think it's very interesting.
Fantastic. That was great. So we're going to go to Kate, and then I have an idea for a next thing, and then we're going to turn it to Laynie for a next thing. So, Kate, what do you think about Creeley?
Well, this is one of my favorite poems. And since it's located in Beat Week, I'll say that one thing that interests me about it is how it's working both with and against the beat ethos as articulated by Kerouac. It has a formal precision and torque that, you know, it's difficult to achieve, but it's also a call for this forward motion and kind of rushing onward philosophy.
That's great. In a word, Laynie, your reading of this poem is sincere. That is, you're reading it sincerely, but you think Creeley is being sincere.
I think what's sincere is what can we do against the darkness? That question, and we don't know. So, I mean, the poem definitely navigates. There's humor. There's death. I saw on the chat somebody said I think this ends in a car crash. Let me see who that was who just said that, if I can find it, or someone else can shout it out. Someone else can shout it out. People are talking. Anyway, that question, you know, about what do we do against it? And all of our attempts are kind of futile, and that is distressing and also maybe funny and disorienting. I mean, there's a lot of, one of the things I love about Creeley so much is that there's so much emotion registered in such a short space, and it's never over sentimentalized.
Wonderful, everybody. We're going to turn to Kerouac. I think it was suggested by Irene. And if anybody can get to the text, what I'm going to ask a couple of people to do is pick out their favorite of these. Some of them are long, so you don't want to read the whole thing. But maybe pick one out and we can talk about it. So I'm going to ask Dave and Max and Magdalena. Magdalena, do you have access to this poem somehow?
Is this Essentials or Belief and Technique?
Essentials of Spontaneous Prose. Yes. Estelle, can you share? Do you have it with you? Wow, you're so prepared. That is great. So we'll ask Magdalena. So what did I say? Dave, Max, and Magdalena? Did I say that? Okay. Dave, you want to start? Pick something out from this amazing piece?
Yeah, I'll pick the one that begins timing. Nothing is muddy that runs in time and to laws of time. Shakespearean stress of dramatic need to speak now in own unalterable way or forever hold tongue. No revisions, except obvious rational mistakes, such as names or calculated insertions in act of not writing, but inserting. And it's funny, it makes me think of how, you know, editing is inserting, which is just an interesting concept. You know, like some people think all writing is editing, but this takes a different approach.
Leanne, no revisions. Sounds pretty good to you, probably, right?
Yeah.
Can you say why?
Well, if you get into the moment of writing the poem, you want to just spill it out, like he says in another list, wild scribbled notebooks of spontaneous joy, like this, you know, getting to that. And if you try to edit it, it's going to kill it.
Exactly. No revisions. I love how he wusses out a little bit by saying, well, except obvious rational mistakes, which, you know, he may have been ironic about that. Okay. Max, pick one, say what you think about it, and then I'll ask Ian to comment in whatever way Ian wants to.
I'll mention the last one here in the list, mental state, if only because I love the way it begins. If possible, write in scare quotes without consciousness and semi-trance, as Yeats's later trance writing, allowing subconsciousness to admit in own uninhibited, interesting, necessary, and so scare quotes modern language what conscious art would censor and write exactly swiftly with writing or typing cramps In accordance, as from center to periphery, with laws of orgasm, Reich's beclouding of consciousness, come from within out to relaxed and said. I love that all of this is predicated on if possible, which is actually quite generous. You don't have to necessarily be in this headspace to do this. Only if possible, only if the conditions
Only
allow.
if possible. Yes, a rare moment of humility.
Yeah, exactly.
Ian Morrison, do you ever want to try to write without consciousness, whatever that would mean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what was coming through in that last one was like what we now talk about so much as semantics. So I found myself thinking about Leanne's practice and about C.A. Conrad's practice. And I guess for me in that, I was thinking, is writing without consciousness writing with a different kind of consciousness where the body is what's conscious?
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so we are turning to Magdalena, who's been looking at the text. Do you have one you want to pick? And I guess we need the microphone.
Lag in procedure, no pause to think of a proper word, but the infantile pile up of scatological build-up words till satisfaction is gained, which will turn out to be great appending rhythm to a thought and be in accordance with the great law of timing.
What's he saying?
Well, it's like often we think that poetry is about, choosing the perfect, the right words, but actually it's a lot about what words not to say and what silences to leave. I think, especially when you're translating poetry, this is a challenge to because it on the surface is like you're trying to think of good words, but in the end it's like finding this inner silence of the poem.
Well said. Magdalena, if I'm not mistaken, you do a lot of translating.
Yes, and sometimes also into English, and here I rely a lot on contacts with people who are native speaker of English. For example, Alison, who is my friend from the Mudpo, and it's amazing because we do we have to think to make this bridge between the two languages and try to understand, but it's like you have to go through a lot of silence because you have to really reflect a lot. So sometimes it's like he says that it's like you don't want to pause, but if you don't pause, you're not gonna come to the essence of poetry.
That's perfect. What you said about your interest in translation is exactly what Kerouac was saying in number 5, Lag and Procedure. But it sounds dangerous as a professional translator to try not to pause to think of proper word.
Well, it's a kind of a way of a profession and a way of approaching reality, which is always risky because in the end you have to make a certain choice. But it's like you're always gonna question yourself: did I make the right choice? But so you always have to take some kind of a risk. There is like no procedure in the end. It's you have to own your choices.
Beat Polish translator out here. Thank you, Magdalena. Snaps from Magdalena. Fantastic. Okay, so J.S., would you tell us, just recite some of the stuff going on in the chat, and I'm going to take this opportunity to remind shy callers from around the world. Oh, he actually got a call. Chris, you got a call? Yeah. Okay, 1 minute. All right, J.S., tell us what has been said.
Yeah, so there's an interesting conversation, which as it happens in the chat, interspersed through some time, that's been happening about why John in the I Know a Man poem.
Yes.
So let me see if I can, it begins with Laura asking, not a rhetorical question, any thoughts on why he chooses to call his friend a name that is not his name? And let's see, we have someone suggesting that it evokes the Dear John letter. and suggests even reading this as a breakup poem, as a sort of severing of this friendship. We have it being read as just the average John Doe. There was also, building off of a comment that Laynie brought up about this poem eventually moving towards a crash. Suzanne says they might physically break up if they crash. Let's see.
Breaking up is hard to do.
And then Laura adding, is he disguising his friend's identity for a reason? Someone else, Lee Mast, suggesting maybe it's a shorter version of the name, like his name being Jonathan. Not taking the time to say the full thing, haha.
Wow, they're into this poem.
Yeah, they're really, really speculating on John. And then, like, interspersed through this, much like the poem where there are multiple conversations going on, there's also a conversation about what exactly beat poetry is. So
Love
Martin
that.
asking, what is a beat poem? And trying to trace these multiple levels of the conversation. So Jane replies, I think of Howl as an example, but not a definition, that's for sure. Let's see. Martin adds in, I agree, it doesn't feel like a beat poem, but I'm not sure what I mean by beat poetry either. And I'm no longer sure whether it, classic question, whether it is referring to Howl or referring to Creeley.
That's the Martin I
then,
think it is. He's only a couple of hours south of here. He should have come up. Hi, Martin. Could be wrong. For all I know, he's in Paraguay. Whatever. Thank you, JS.
Yeah.
We have someone on the phone, and I would like to ask Christy, Sophia, and Christina, who will need the mic, to respond in any way to the caller's comment or question. So this is really flying by the seat of your pants. This is the fun part, Christy, of being, ModPo webcast. So, Chris, who do we have on the phone?
Yes, so we have Suzanne, a first-time ModPoer calling from South Carolina. Ooh. Suzanne, right?
Wow. Hi, Suzanne. Can you hear me?
I can, and I'm petrified. Kat made me call in.
Oh, my gosh. So, wait a minute. Are you... Which Suzanne are you? Are you the very active Suzanne?
Yes, I am.
Suzanne,
I think so.
What's your last name?
Miller?
Yes. Hi, Suzanne. We're so glad you called. This is your first time calling, huh?
Hi, Al. You're very nice and respond to my newbie questions.
I am answering your questions as almost a full-time job. I love it. No, that's not
I'm
true.
Sorry.
You are great. You are exactly what we created ModPo to. The situation is exactly what we hoped for. You're really, really deep diving, and you do ask a lot of questions, fundamental ones. I imagine that the question that you're going to ask, and Christy's the first to respond, and he's petrified as much as you are.
More so.
Okay. Suzanne, whatever question you have, make it really basic so that Christy has to struggle. What do you think?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
How about this one?
Okay.
We have these poets all in week 6, and we're calling them all beats,
Right.
but I see very different things going on here. I see Ginsberg, who obviously takes a lot of time editorially going back and revising and getting his sounds just right, which seems diametrically opposed to what Kerouac's talking about in The Essentials of Spontaneous Prose. And then when we get to Incident, to me, feels very, very different and almost in a sense, we talked about Incident in Erica's office hours this week, but it feels a lot like imagism in terms of the way it's going about things. So even though we have these people all in the same unit, they don't really seem a cohesive group to me.
Yep.
Is that basic enough?
No, that is really, really good, Suzanne. What I'm going to ask you to do Answer this, please. What's your ModPo experience been like? Your first time in ModPo, what's it been like? What's running through your head about it? And does it take much more time than you thought it would?
Yes, it takes way more time than I thought it would, but that's probably because I'm putting in lots of hours because it's my first time. I love it. I think it's wonderful. I've taken other online courses before on occasion, but they haven't had the real-time interactivity that ModPo does, and that is a world of difference because it makes it a real class. It's taking way more time, partially because I was not an English major, and so I've read some of these people, but I'm being introduced to many of these poets for the first time. So it takes a lot of work to keep up, and then people reference the ModPo Plus syllabus, and I'm just trying to get
You're
through
thinking,
the main one.
oh my
this year.
gosh, there's something more there. Well, I just want to say congratulations. You've completed the trifecta of inter-animated, what's the word? Live experience of ModPo, because the live non-asynchronous, the synchronous experience is in the office hours, and then watching the webcast, and now calling the webcast is the trifecta. And you've done it, so we're going to put our hands together for our friend from South Carolina. And Suzanne, you don't have a South Carolinian accent, so you came from somewhere else, or you got rid of it?
A little bit of both. I should have been from South Carolina. I went New Jersey by way of Boston, by way of Chicago to South Carolina.
Okay. That's great. I don't hear any Chicago. I do hear a little New Jersey, because I'm from Jersey.
Oh, no, that's bad.
No, it's not bad. Jersey's great. Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks for being part of the community, and thanks for calling. And if you hang up now, you'll be able to hear the responses through your webcast.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for doing this. I plan to be back in ensuing years.
Fantastic. Oh, that is so great. Okay. The number is 610-616-3208. We've had one caller, and now we need another one, 610-616-3208. Or you can Skype using ModPo Pen. All right. Christy, Sophia, and Christina respond in any way to Suzanne. Big question.
Yeah, it's a massive question, and it's true. The this week does contain multitudes. There are so many different approaches, but I think that anything that you do, there are going to be as many different valid ways of doing what you're trying to do as A, people who do it, and B, times they try to do it. So if there isn't this diversity of different approaches, then something's off.
Right.
I think
it's too tightly composed of a movement or school. One doesn't want that.
No.
May I ask it's not a personal question, but it's a personal poetic question about. Okay. So you were and I think are to some degree, half of you poetically is influenced by Hugh McDermott. Is there such a thing as a McDermott school of poetry? And if so, I guess that's as difficult as beat. Probably.
I mean, with McDermott, then you would associate him with the Scottish Renaissance. So people like Sidney Goodsir-Smith, Norman McCaig, George Mackay-Brown. They all kind of orbited around I don't know if he was a star or a black hole, or he would probably want to be both.
And you? What does it mean to be under the influence of Hugh McDermott?
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. And there's not a lot of McDermott acknowledgement in this audience. No, it's not resonating. Oh, Scottish people, you should know your McDermott, right?
I think so. Well. I mean, he's very important to me. I mean, he's important to me because I write in a register of Scots, and he dominates the world of the registers of Scots.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marvelous. Thanks for entertaining that. Suzanne's question, Sophia, is about the coherence of the beats, let's say in the syllabus.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I think a characteristic of the beats is this gesture toward an amplification of noise, and that noise can be interior or exterior. So I think Kerouac listened to like whatever internal noise demanded he pause and forget about the precision of a word for a minute. And I think Amiri Baraka, when writing Incident, considered the like heartbeat thrumming gunshot noise of that pattern of the short, quick lines. So those are different results, but I think they're born from the same impulse of noise and transmitting that noise in the best way possible for the purpose of the poem.
Oh, beautiful. Fantastic. Your brain is working even though your throat is not.
It's at like 40%.
You're amazing. Let the record show that. Sophia may have lost her voice as we stood outside in the pretty cold weather in the Botanic Garden, not the Botanical, but the Botanic Garden, for an hour and a half talking about poems, and that's probably where you left your voice. We'll have to go pick it up tomorrow.
It's not a bad place to leave it.
It's not a bad place to leave it. Christina, first of all, you came all the way from the Philadelphia area to be with us. You could have just waited till next week and come to the writer's house.
Maybe I'll come to that too.
Can you hold the mic right up?
Yep.
So I guess I was going to ask you why you came all this way, but I think I know.
Oh, well, certainly to be here, ModPo. It's my first time in Scotland. And also to be with my friend Irene, who I got to meet through ModPo last year. So that was a super bonus.
You're meeting kind of halfway.
Yes, exactly. And ModPo was a life-changing experience for me as well. It was my first time in being introduced to poetry and not really understanding it. And again, as one, I forget your name, but how she said it so beautifully, it really unlocked poetry for me as well. And the close readings and appreciating the genius of the different poets.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Suzanne's question was about the coherence of the beats. You can take it anywhere.
Okay. I think it's interesting, the idea of Kerouac being, it's like he seems to me that he has like a lot of rules about stream of consciousness, which almost seems like a contradiction. Like for stream of consciousness to be something that you just let it flow, and yet he seems to have a lot of things that he thinks you should consider while having stream of consciousness. So I wonder if that's the underlying, commonality between Howl and Incident, where there, or even what was the name of the last one? The car. We were driving the car.
I know.
I know. Thank you. That it's those poems seem to me like if you're just listening to them, I don't know how much editing was actually done by the poets and how much they just followed the stream of consciousness, but they do feel almost stream of consciousness as they're written. It's just very forward. I don't know them well enough to quote them, but the sound of them very flowy. And as far as I know there's a lot of stops and starts, but that's again reflecting what's being written about, but it does sound like they are following that pattern of not a whole lot of thought necessarily going into it, and yet coming up with something that's so profound.
Great. Thank you. Very thoughtful. Appreciate that. And Suzanne, thank you for calling. So I'm going to turn it over to Laynie Brown, and Laynie's going to introduce a new poem to talk about, and we're going to need a lightning round of Irene, Leanne, Kate, and Dave, and Estelle. Are you okay with that, Estelle? Okay. So again, Irene, Leanne, Kate, Dave, and Estelle to respond to whatever question Laynie's about to ask, but you'll have to do it relatively quickly because that's 5 of you, and then we're going to have a big round of final words. So
I just want to say first that we promised a book to the first caller.
Yes.
So Suzanne could send that email
Suzanne,
with your address.
send us your address to modpo@writing.upenn.edu, and we will send a Laynie Brown book.
Raising your hand.
Hi. Are you Appy?
Appy.
Appy, come and sit down. Appy came from Prague.
Do you want them? Do you want the microphone so you could say
Yes,
hello?
let's give Appy the mic, but we also have Estelle. Appy, hi. Are you gonna hang out with us afterwards? I hope.
Sure, definitely.
Okay, good.
Definitely.
Wow. So that's pretty great. All the way from Prague. We knew you were coming. Fantastic. All right, we're going to add you to this. So
right.
let me get this right now. I'm going to get it right, but make sure you're all fast. Irene, Leanne, Kate, Dave, Estelle, and Appy to respond to.
Okay, so I have a question about Cheerless Junkie song by Helen Adam. So I will state the question, then we're going to listen to it, and then I'll repeat the question, and we'll go into our lightning round.
Okay.
So the question is, and obviously I chose this in honor of that we are here in Scotland, and I love Helen Adam. And here it is. Say anything you like about the material this week in relation to the ideas of altered states of consciousness, the creative process, and substance use.
Substance use.
That's a lot.
Not abuse. Use.
Well, you can say use or abuse.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to hear it, and then Irene will be first.
Cheerless Junkie's song. Seeking love upon a day of summer's pride. I left Long Island suburbs for the lower east side. The train it roared and thundered and I sang above its scream. There's a cockroach coming towards me, but it cannot spoil my dream. Love, love, and LSD, it shall not spoil my dream. Blue moonlight over Tompkins Square, drop out, tune in, turn on. The village all around me and Long Island suburbs gone. In a pad far down on 4th Street, soon I welcome the approach of the rat that loves the twilight and the nimble-footed roach. Love, love at eventide, the grey rat and the roach. I'm always where the action is. I blow my mind all day, while on Long Island's tennis courts the bland suburbans play. And I was born suburban. Who would ever credit that? No chick who saw me frogging with the cockroach and the rat. It's hoe for horse or method dream to spark the swinging mood, while rats run up my trouser legs, roaches share my food. Rats and roaches nuzzle me when it's dark and hot. Love, love, it's all the same, mixing speed and pot. First a rat and then a roach are both as like as not. If I can't find a fix tonight, my marrow bones will rot. Goodbye, transcendent Tompkins Square, I haven't long to stay. A double jolt of heroin and I'll be on my way. Let rats and roaches bury me, they'll bury me in state, as they march from Verrazano Bridge down to the Golden Gate. Clear across the continent, yonder let me lie, in the gutters of Haight-Ashbury to freak the passers-by, till all the tourists gape and say, brother, he died high. Let rat tails write my epitaph, brother, he died high.
Okay, I'll be quick, but I was just like thinking about poetry is sometimes conceived as spells, and there's something magic, and in magic there's potions. So I think this is kind of the same in a maybe more modern way, but still the same.
So the poem itself is a drug. I like it. Leanne.
Well, there's so much to say, but I just think it's about ecstatics. And it's definitely, of course, it's a persona poem. I play this for my students. They didn't get that at first. They were like, she's writing about taking drugs. I said, no, she's writing about from the persona of this cheerless junkie, but she's using his persona to speak through, but it's the ecstatic part of it, using the methadone and like being on speed and being ecstatic and writing all this work and then going all the way across the country. So it's uniting the beats in San Francisco with the beats in New York and then going higher.
and with the accent and the ballad sung, connecting Scotland as well.
Yeah, talk about making it new.
Thank you, Leanne. Kate is up and Dave is on deck.
Well, I'll say Leanne Brown is a reincarnation of Helen Adam. True, she's your spirit animal.
Intoxicating.
But about substance use, I'm thinking that using language to find a self unmediated by language is a theme of all of the poetry in Mod Po, and that substances are maybe one way of punching through that wall or inching around it, whatever language is putting between us, between the poet and the material world.
Lovely, thank you, wonderful. Dave, followed by Appy.
I think that idea of using substance abuse as a way to get unmediated use of language is really cool, because especially in this poem, I was just struck by the regular melody, the rhythm of everything, which gave structure to it still. So it seems like even when you do try to get this, unmediated use, tapping into some transcendental something, there's still some agency going on. You can't avoid that. It just helps it even helps to get a reader to understand, to be on the same page.
Wonderful, thank you. I can't wait for us later to edit this segment of this webcast to produce a nice piece on Helen Adam for future Mod Po Pluses. Appy, followed by Estelle.
Well, actually, I was originally going to respond to Suzanne's question, but I think it can be related to this one.
Okay.
Because I wanted to say that one of the things that I kind of like sense from the beat poetry is how individual experience is important, how it gets expressed, possibly more so than in the previous weeks or the previous movements, and that having a diverse segment of the poets and the poems is an expression of that too, and having a bit more homogeneous selection would be weird. It would go against what the beats were as poets, as people probably. And I think that going to this particular one, the kind of immediacy that Dave was just talking about, I think that, there is one way to look at using substances to write poetry, and that one way could be that, you don't get like more personal, more individual, more immediate, I guess, expression of one's soul even, I think.
Appy, that's the perfect synthesis of two huge questions for someone who has been up for 36 hours. So I think snaps for Appy. Marvelous, thank you. And we're going to turn to Estelle, and then Laynie might have a quick wrap-up thought on this poem, and then we're going to get to final words.
I think if we talk about substance abuse and poetry in the English canon, we have to think of Coleridge and his amazing poem in Kubla Khan, how it came after an opium-induced dream, and he got, I don't know how many stanzas he got, but then someone called him away from business to Porlock, and that was that. It was gone. But I also think if you're going to do it, and maybe it is a way of freeing the mind and opening up the channels, you've got to follow what Jack Kerouac said at number 3. Try never get drunk outside your own house.
Estelle, you're so good. You should be up at the table.
But I also, I had a question about the Creeley poem. I don't know if we'll be able to come back to that.
Throw it out, and someone in final words will pick it up.
Okay, so my question is, what do you think the relevance is of the religious references in the poem? And they're there with the John, which could be disciple, the I am at the end of the line, the darkness surrounds, which comes from the Psalms, and also the goddamn and for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it's all there, isn't it? You just did it for us. You've answered your question.
I haven't, because I want to know. I know what I think the relevance might be, but I'm interested in your
Thank you,
thoughts.
Estelle. That was so great. Laynie, a quick thought on the poem since you chose it?
I want to say, if you haven't watched the video of Helen Adams singing, which is in the chorus and also easy to find on YouTube, you have to do it. She says, "I blow my mind all day." Helen Adams blows my mind all day. And I think that all these poets and all humans, we want to know how to blow our mind all day without destroying ourselves. So, you know, as has been said, ecstasy and substance use and language, and, you know, there are many ways, and hopefully we can blow our mind all day without destroying ourselves or anyone else.
Sounds ideal. Yes, that Christina wants to applaud that plea for living life that way, right? Okay, we're going to go to final words. Now, why have we taken so much time, for final words? Usually we jam it in at the end because there are a lot of people here and we don't see many of these people very often in person. So hoping to include a number of folks. We are going to start with Kate, and then I'm going to ask Graham to go next for a final thought of any kind. Kate?
Oh, man, I am unprepared. I guess I'll say this. What I was just thinking about substance use as a way through that wall of mediation by language has an analog maybe in the performance poetry of Anne Waldman and others, and the way that I'll just talk about her, she uses her body to almost thrust the words straight into the world through the sort of predetermined, mediated part of normative language.
That's fantastic. Kate, since we know you have to bug out in a few minutes, we just want to say goodbye to you, and we'll see you in a week.
Bye.
Bye, Kate. Bye-bye. Lots of love. So Graham is next, followed by Jesse, if Jesse's up for it.
Okay, I'm also thinking about Suzanne's question, which I think Suzanne probably spoke for a lot of readers this week and saying, how do these things all fit together? How does the Creeley poem go with Howl? How does the Amiri Baraka poem go with Old Angel Midnight or something? And I think my answer to that is that this kind of weird juxtaposition that you've done with these writers and these texts this week is in some ways very beat. Kerouac, Ginsberg, they were about, kicking against conformity, about breaking down doors, and about improvisational approaches to creativity and trying to do something new. So in putting these guys together and saying, let's read Creeley in the beats, right? That seems very improvisational and very open. And in that sense, it seems to me to be a very beat thing to do. It's very cool.
You did a meta thing, Graham. Yeah. So ModPo turns into a beat poetic course for week 6. Just love that. Thank you, Graham, and it's good to see you. So let's go to Jesse, who's in the back, followed by Max.
So I guess I just had a question arise, thinking about the disinhibition that like Kerouac is striving for. Like, what is the difference between that and someone like the Baroness that we, I think, touched on in a previous week? Yeah. It's just something that made me start thinking about.
Do you have a tentative answer to your own question? Because this is the way final words usually work.
I think there was substance abuse involved with the Baroness.
Dozen cocktails.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
We're going to have a dozen cocktails after this.
So I'm not sure where my question was going, but that's
how
what it made me
is
think about.
Yeah. So how has your ModPo experience been overall? What are your thoughts about that?
It's been enlightening. I don't have a background in studying poetry, so it's sort of like learning a foreign language.
Marvelous.
Getting a grasp.
Marvelous. Thank you, Jesse, so much. All right, Max is up and Ian is on deck.
In addition to the usual thing I do during Final Words, which is to plug something, which I will do right now, European time zone meetup group, since many of you are on a European time zone, we will be meeting on Saturday at 4 p.m. Central European time, so that's 3 p.m. Scottish time. If any of you are interested, you can find more information in the forums, or I'll have Al send around an announcement to Modco folks. More generally, in addition to that announcement, I just want to say we've been talking a lot about substances, right, in the last part of this webcast. I'm also just thinking a little bit more about Creeley's "I Know a Man." In addition to substances, alcohol or drugs, I want to throw out there something else to consider with the beats, and that's petroleum, that's oil, because burning gasoline is so important in this poem. The ability to drive a fast car, and it was so important to all of the beats. Jack Kerouac, his travels up and down the country, and I think there's an interesting reappraisal maybe to be done in this moment, of climate change, of how important not only drugs were to certain literary movements or other things that people consume, but also oil, energy, things like that. So that's just some food for thought. Enjoy
Wow,
your
Max,
cocktails.
that is a monograph you need to write, an eco beat critique.
That's
It's actually not that hard. Okay. Thank you, Max. You're the best as always. Turning to Ian, followed by Chris Tids.
So I was thinking about this question of Helen Adam and Scottishness, and I was thinking countries are a bit like movements in a way. So one of the things that I love about what you've been doing with this course is looking at the people who pass through the movement, pass through a state of maybe temporarily identifying with it, and then move on to something else. So someone like Brenda Fraser turning into Bonnie Bremser, heading off into environmental poetics, or people leaving Scotland and being lost sight of. And I think, thank you for bringing Helen Adam back to Scotland, because I want more people to know about her. It's something that will come up tomorrow when we're looking at Veronica Forrest Thompson, I think, as well. Other figures like W.S. Graham, the people that aren't the Hugh McDermotts, that stay solidly identifiably. And I'm not saying one is better or one is worse, but it's great to find time within a consideration of a movement or of a nation to find the figures that were temporarily allied with it.
So smart, such a great observation, and also so generous in thinking with us about the course. That's Ian. Thank you, Ian. Okay, and so we're going to turn to Chris Tids, followed by J.S.
Yeah, just a general thought I have about the week is that I've got this terrible temptation to always get to the bottom of and the answers of a poem. And with the beats in particular, I think what I've learnt coming back around the course several times is that for me now I'm getting used to listening to the sounds, which I think are very important in a lot of the beat poetry, and I'm almost jettisoning to a certain extent the semantics of what on earth it might mean. I'm picking up clusters sometimes, and the other thing I'm picking up, if you take Jack Kerouac's Old Angel Midnight, there's so much going on. It's a cacophony of noise, really. Yeah, I've not lived in the States, but I can imagine looking down on this sort of square and picking up all the little actions that are happening all the time. I couldn't say exactly what the fundamental themes were at all time, but you can pick up sort of groups and clusters of action sequences and wonder.
Interesting way to learn an urban landscape that is foreign from your own through an experimental prose poem such as that. That is such a great observation about, I don't know, the geographical specificity of urban sounds, right? And of course, John Cage and others went at it in a little more a more standard avant-garde way than Kerouac did. But thank you, Chris Tids, and for all you do for ModPo and for coming all this way.
Pleasure.
So we're going to turn to J.S., followed by Appy.
Yeah, so I have been lingering on the reading of Amiri Baraka's Incident as a Cubist poem, and that statement sort of made me notice how central the fall down the stairs is. Like the shooting is sort of rehearsed and replayed through multiple, or not perspectives quite, but replayed multiple times. But so much of it is about the stumbling. He fell stumbling past the shadow, a down shot, dying dead to a full halt. And the sort of resonance with even something like Duchamp's Women Descending the Staircase. But then, yeah, right in the middle of the poem, there's an isolated down the stairs. So that cubist reading really brought me to that. But then on top of that, upon noticing these stairs, then I sort of fixated on how, and towards the end, Braca then describes the victim's stair and the stillness of that stair versus the movement down the stairs, and how those two, the punning on that, really seems to describe what is both somehow so evident within the poem, what is known and then what isn't, between these two different stairs and their relationship to movement.
Brilliant. It sounds like the poem is growing on you, and that's just, yeah, really great to see. Wonderful. Thank you, JS. As always, Appy is up next, and Irene is on deck.
I think I have a bit more personal final words. First of all, I think that Greeley and Baraka were my way into beat poetry, because I started taking Modpo kind of despite the fact that there was beat poetry in it. I never really liked it. And you know, through the years, and especially the last couple, I think, I kind of really, Modpo really opened my eyes to beats and to the whole scene, and I hugely appreciate it. And I also want to give a shout out this way to Modpo as a whole and to my dad, because I also started doing Modpo kind of to spite him. And now we do Modpo together, and we discuss the poetry, yes.
Why didn't he come with you?
Because he's busy and because he doesn't really speak English.
Wow. That is cool. I would love to be a fly on that wall in Prague to see the two of you working on it. Thank you, Appy. It's so great that you came here with us, and I look forward afterwards to chatting with you more about this, about all of this. Thank you. That's Appy. Okay, we're going to turn to Irene, followed by Dave Poplar.
Yeah, I have like two comments, I think. The first one, I think I read someone, possibly David, in the forums, who was saying, well, he was talking about the challenge this week, and I think it's important, like the challenge, especially concerning female poets. And so I just encourage everybody to go to Modpo Plus. That is like really overwhelming, but there's like a lot of different poets, female poets, and I think Laynie did like a good job there, so you can check poems there. And also there were like folks talking in YouTube about how after reading all these beat poets, we don't know anymore what a beat poem is. And I think this is also like a very Modpo thing. Like we start reading and we get in depth, and then we don't know anymore what anything is. But maybe this also means that we know more about it. So just let it be.
Oh, with the paradox. Thank you, Irene. And it's really great to see you. We're going to go to Dave, followed by Christy.
This may be slightly tangential, but just about the discussion of the mind-altering effects of substances that we've been having, it kind of makes me think of the perceived distinction between mind and body, because when I think about LSD, I think of Doc Ellis's no-hitter. He's a pitcher for the Pirates who, on LSD, threw a no-hitter. And recently,
you better explain. We're here in Scotland. What's a no-hitter?
Oh, a no-hitter in baseball is when the pitcher is able to prevent every single batter they face from getting a hit. So it's a big deal, and it's rare, and it's important, and it's an amazing show of athletic skill. And he did it while he was high out of his mind on LSD. But also recently,
but point of information, he didn't know he was going to pitch that day, so he did a tab of acid figuring he'd be sitting in the dugout for the day, and then the next day he'd be, but then the manager, Danny Murtaugh, said, "You're in, Doc." And Doc, instead of saying, "I don't think that's a good idea," he went out and threw a no-hitter, and there's video of it. It's amazing. Leanne is freaked out by this. All right, go ahead, Dave.
He was also high on his own volition through most of his games, though, by his own admission, too. I mean, not tripping his mind off on
He wrote a
LSD, but he
book with someone, maybe Donald Hall or the poet Donald Hall or Roger Angell wrote a book with Doc Ellis, and it's worth reading, I got to tell you.
There's a documentary about it, too. But recently, Diplo, who's a DJ from Philly, ran a marathon. He claimed to be on LSD the entire thing, too. So it just makes me think about how...
This final word is running amok.
I told you it was a slightly tangential, but I don't know. I was just wondering about how we conceive of the effects of these substances. Maybe the conventional belief about changing our perspective is something we need to change our perspective about.
Lovely, thank you, Dave, and always good to see you from so far away. Christy's beginning to think maybe I should go to Arizona and hang out with Dave. Christy is up, followed by Christina.
So I think I'm going to continue the substance theme. I don't have quite as amazing a story as that. That is definitely a video I have to watch. I've been thinking about poetry as substance, and I've been taking quite a lot of poetry this week.
Too much?
No.
Modpo comes to town, and Christy has to be a poet, which is what he is.
Yeah. I always have quite a high diet. I mean, like, I don't mean high like that, but
what do you mean?
I spend a lot of time with poetry, but one of the things that poetry does is it changes how we see the world and changes how we experience ourselves and how we experience the universe. And that's like something that the Beats really tap into, and it's an important thing, and it's a crucial thing in keeping us alive, as is coming together and sharing these substances together.
I love it. So we're all basically getting high, and you're the only one with a glass of wine. So. Thank you, Christy Williamson. Okay, we adore you, and we're so glad that you're here with us. Christy Williamson, everybody. Yeah. We are going to go to Christina, followed by Beverly.
I just felt like Christy's comment of poetry changes the way we see the world is really full circle from Irene saying that it was like a drug. And then I loved what Laynie said about finding ways to, basically find those hits because there is the toll that, that it can take on our bodies. But it does seem that taking drugs does break down some sort of barrier between us and whatever other reality there is. So it's interesting that for me, the poetry, this coming to Modpo, and every week Irene is so gracious to lead a Modpo-based group where we study poems in Spanish and Spanish poetry. And for me, that is like the highlight of my week because it really is. And the class has been amazing. And to be able to go into, for me, every poem is like a universe unto itself where you go and whoever you go with or whatever experience they bring to the poem, you have a completely different experience of it every time, even if it's the same poem. And I love that that's the thing that I took away from Modpo, that it's the people and the experiences that come along with you that make your experience of the poem.
Fabulous. That's lovely, Christina, and thank you again for making the trip. Beverly is up, followed by Sophia.
Yeah, and just a personal thing, I think being here is really reignited my excitement about poetry and really inspired me to go back to Modpo. I haven't been able to do it for a couple of years, but I'm really excited to go back, and thank you so much for coming to Scotland.
Do you know what happens if you go to modpo.org and you just click week 0? Week 0 is all the general overview videos, and you are in the first one. When we were in Prague, we had a little, I guess I did it myself. It was just me and Jane. I did it myself. And you are captured there talking about how important Modpo is and recommending it to other people. So go to modpo.org, click week 0, and watch Beverly in like 2015 or whenever it was. Do you want to offer your final word, or have you done that?
That's it for me.
Thank you, Beverly. That's so great. Okay, Sophia is up, and Sharon will be on deck.
Kat McCready in the YouTube chat said that real life was so paramount to beat poets. And I really liked that point. And it made me think about another similarity or connection between them to Susan's question earlier is the materiality of their process. My God, the materiality of their process, which, you know, is dissimilar in many ways, but there's always something like very material about the way they work through the world, and that can be substance use / abuse or cerebral pondering, but there's always something like sticky there for them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sophia. Sharon is up and Leanne Brown is on deck. Can we get the mic back to Sharon?
Really just thinking about the various things that people have said. Like you, the I Know a Man and Braca got me into this week's various poems. And your comment about, Jesse's comment about enlightening, my poem enlightened. In I Know a Man, is it darkness surrounds us? Is that the term?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if darkness surrounds us, then Mod Po is the enlightenment. And when you came to London and you asked my other half, John, to introduce himself, he said, one day I'm going to write a book about what it's like to live with a Mod Po addict. So maybe...
Has he written the book yet?
Ask him, he's writing things.
We will see him, I think, in a few minutes.
Hopefully.
With
so
Arlo, the dog.
Following that on, Mod Po is the drug, isn't it? Mod Po is the... yeah.
Sharon Wells. Thank you, Sharon. You're the best. It's good to see you again. We're going to turn to Leanne Brown, followed by Magdalena.
Love is the drug I'm thinking of. Yeah, I wanted to say, basically, I could tell lots of stories, but I will try to write them down. But the main thing is I want to say that even though the beats are highly problematic, especially with some sexism kind of stuff and invisibility of women, like for example, Ginsberg got Maureen Owen mixed up with Bernadette Mayer. They both had like similar hair shape or something. I don't know. And they had glasses. Like there was like a weird not seeing women that happened a lot. But Ginsberg, I think, was like he did Whale's Visitation. He just wrote the drug at the top of the page and the date. And he wrote during. And it's not just about during drugs. It's about during everything. That's what Beats gave us. Is like write about everything, during everything, all the time. Nothing is foreign to poetry. So this is immediacy and inclusion of every part of human experience and non-human experience, and being open, wide open to writing through everything and falling in love with it. Yeah, love is the drug.
Good pitch. No, that was magical the way you did it so quickly, but you said so much. Leanne, you're really getting used to this high-speed Mod Po on-demand response thing.
Well, you bring it out in me, but the
take that as a
the
compliment.
Southerners, people think Southerners talk slow, but they actually talk really fast.
Okay, we're going to turn to Magdalena, followed by Laynie, and we're just about wrapping up.
I want to make reference to the place we're in. I think it's amazing that there's like a poetry library, and I think Mod Po is this kind of great library with all the videos, all the forums, all the texts, but also what we're doing here, that we're talking about it together. This is also amazing about Mod Po, that you can study poetry in your own pace, but you can also collaborate with others. I hope libraries will be like this also in the future.
Oh, I love it. I love the idea of Mod Po as a library. Estelle, you seem to be holding the mic, and or you're not, but we kind of ran out of time, but I'd love to give you a quickie final thought, and then we'll turn to Laynie.
I suppose this is the first time I've done Mod Po. I'm a poet rather than an academic, and I'm just sort of trying to keep the two things separate. But I'm drawing a lot from what I'm learning, thinking about how it might apply in my own practice. But the whole talk about the drugs what really interests me in writing poetry is how you access the moment where the best poem comes. And I know that my best poems don't come from sitting, crafting, working at the desk. They come in a flash. And it's obviously for the Beats, perhaps they found that, and Coleridge found that through drugs, but it's trying to access that, isn't it? And maybe other poets found it through muse as well. But it's that moment really where something opens. And but I've loved this week. I really enjoyed Jack Kerouac very much.
Great, Estelle. Glad you're with us, and hope you'll stay on through week 10. And then what happens after week 10, Laynie Brown?
Final words.
No, after final words, what happens?
Well, ModPo never stops. We've got Slowpo, and we've got all the materials available year-round, so it just keeps on coming.
Yes, join us for Slowpo and try ModPo Plus. Okay, Laynie Brown, final thought.
I just want to acknowledge that there's a thread in the YouTube chat about addiction and, substance abuse is no joke. And I just want to say, of course, it's no joke. And I think one of the gifts of the work of Helen Adam is that she can couple a lot of gravity. I mean, there's a lot of murder. There's a lot of devastation, certainly in the Cheerless Junkie song. And she couples it with this melody that is kind of cheerful and that kind of heightens the experience of it. It kind of draws you in as if it were light, but it's not at all light, and we do take it seriously. And then I just want to ballyhoo my office hours on Monday. I missed everybody this week because I was here, but I'll be one day back. I'll be really jet lagged, and I'll be counting on all of you to, wake me up as we talk. So 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday.
Thank you, Laynie. A couple of thank yous as we wrap up tonight. First of all, the aforespoken and aforementioned Laynie Brown, who did the work, the lion's share by far, work of coordinating and curating pretty much, and we're kind of in the middle of it, this entire visit, meeting poets, talking to people, going to various places. So we need to put our hands together for Laynie Brown. It's a miracle. We also want to acknowledge the Scottish Poetry Library, and they've been so helpful to us. And I'm sure Allie is still downstairs, so thank you, Allie, for supporting us and all of your colleagues here. You're welcome, Daddy-O. Okay, whoa, we got a little beat stuff going on there. That was cool. I don't know if the webcast picked that up, but he said, "You're welcome, Daddy-O." Also, Chris Martin and Zach Hardner, they came all the way from Philly with all this equipment. And they worked with the people here to coordinate, so we didn't bring this monitor, for instance. But they did an extraordinary amount of work to make, just taking that one phone call it's just a feat that they're able to do that. And they, ModPo is the only MOOC that I know of, certainly the only ongoing MOOC that does, during its main season, does a weekly interactive webcast. It's a 3-ring circus. And so Chris and Zach, let's acknowledge them. Oh, they're getting like a standing O. And thank you guys all for coming. We're going to sign off so that the ModPo people watching us on YouTube will sign off and will not hear us talk about how we're going to go out to a pub next. So long, everybody. We'll see you next week.